All right, welcome back to the boxing shop, ladies and gentlemen. We're here as usual Monday night, and of course we got special guest George Garcia. How you doing, George?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you.
Real quick for people tuning in, introduce yourself. Let everybody know who you are and what you do.
So my name is George Garcia. I live in Whitman, Arizona, and so Elijah Garcia. I train him. He's my son. Well, he's my oldest son. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm his trainer's cutman. Well, yeah, I started off as cutman, but I'm his trainer. Me and my dad train him, and yep.
And what we were talking about before the air, you're skilled hand wrapping and cutman for anybody watching on. George is for hire too, so hit
Oh
him
yeah.
up.
Yeah, big time. All the fights. I like to travel too. I'll go out. I'll be working fights in California next month. But I did I mentioned earlier. I did like three or four hands last week on a local Iron Boy show, and I really enjoy doing it, man. To be honest, and then I get a front row seat for the fight. So
Hey,
Hey, keyword for hire, right? Like
yeah.
he, but he's not out here trying to volunteer. And George, you said you got one of the best compliments from a fighter. You want to reiterate that?
Oh yeah, he said. He said that it was really good. Other than Stitch Duran, it was up there. So I was like, yeah, Stitch Duran's a man. So he's been rapping hands for 30, 40 years, I guess. So yeah, it's a good compliment.
it's a hell of a compliment right there for sure.
So
But
Hey
yeah,
George, just I guess follow up the introduction. We know you trained your son already. In the comments, they're saying Elijah Garcia, he's a beast. Um, what prior to I guess him turning pro, where were you at in boxing, and like your introduction to the sport and how you got to this point?
so I had over 100 amateur fights. I was on the U.S. boxing team. I was ranked number one. Well, I was ranked number two, but for a little while I was ranked number one. Because of points from 2000 to 2004, and so Jason Estrada was the Olympian in 2004 for the U.S. And I went and fought for Mexico. I made the Mexican team in '04, and then I didn't I didn't place or anything Olympic. I made the Olympic team. I went to qualifiers. I had fought Cuba. I lost to Cuba. Um, I know it was kind of weird. It was like not a dream, but like the Cubans were the best, and the amateurs. And I got to fight against Kazakhstan, Cuba. I fought the best guys in the world, And then I turned pro. I was 13-1-1 as a pro. I'm a short guy. I'm like, well, I was 5'10". I'm like 5'9.5" now. But fighting heavyweights, I'm a little Mexican chubby dude, and I was always the underdog. And just boxing all those years, all those fights, I got a lot of experience. My dad trained me, and my dad, he was a pro as well. He had 32 professional fights, but just throughout the years, I picked it up. And it's not like when I started training my Elijah. Well, I trained all my boys. I have three boys, and Elijah, Alexis, and Emilio, and they all boxed. I trained them, but just because I boxed doesn't mean I was going to be a good trainer. And I wasn't even that great of a boxer. I was decent, a decent amateur, and the pro I did all right, but just the size and all that stuff wasn't there. Anyways, so just because I boxed doesn't mean I was going to be a good coach. I had to learn. I learned from my dad. I learned from taking the kids to amateur fights, just being around other like world class fighters. And when I boxed, so I put all that together. I had to learn how to be a coach. You don't just be a good coach just because you have experience. So
it's a struggle, man. I That's one thing that I don't. It would be hard for me, as having a son too. I mean, being able to watch my son in the ring, it's kind of rough. And we've talked about that before too, on even on the episode of the Fight Life. We talked about that, how hard it is, training your son in there, seeing that. So that's a lot of pressure too.
well, it wasn't too bad just because I grew up. I grew up boxing myself, and like I knew he was prepared every time. So I guess a little nerve wracking. Like the week up to the fight is really nerve wracking for me. Like, well, it used to be. I used to because I did so much on my own. But as you know, when Eli first turned pro, I was doing everything. I was selling his shirts, getting sponsors, his food. I was making his food, doing, everything that part of the camp. But my wife started helping. We got a manager. We got a nutritionist now. We got a strength conditioning coach. Just so much stuff off my plate. It helped out a lot.
Are there any other fighters that you're? Oh, go ahead, Ray. Go ahead.
I was just saying where your son Elijah is young right now, and you talked about that amateur. At what point did you know, like, all right, we can take this pro? Like having been there yourself.
Well, he was a little more mature. He's always been more mature. He's been mature for his age. And so he got his girlfriend pregnant when he was like 15 years old. And so, like, we had been going to nationals, and he was fighting the same guys in the finals, all the time. Because, he was winning and he was losing. He was losing, fighting the same guys. And he already, said, yeah, he was already talking about going pro. And then he didn't do too great in school. And, so I said, this is what we're going to do. When I found out he was having a baby, I was like, look, we're going to give you 4 years. Me and my wife, we talked, so we're going to give you 4 years. We're going to help you as best we can. And if you're not doing anything in those 4 years, if you're not making any money, if you're not, if you're not doing good in boxing, what you're supposed to do, then you could get a job, and boxing could be your like a hobby, or you could trade yourself, whatever. So I think he was 16 years old when we turned to pro, and at 18 years old we fought on, I believe, a DAZN show. Then we fought PBC, then DAZN. And then we got signed with PBC. Tom Brown signed us, or Elijah, and then he tells me, "Oh, you got to train me now." So he's doing pretty good now. So,
are there any other fighters that you're working with right now?
So my middle son, he was training, but he's wrestling and playing football right now. His name's George Garcia. He's contemplating, turning or going back to boxing after he graduates. He's a senior. But I don't train, but I work with Sebastian Mitri. I help out. He's at the gym where we train. So his trainer is Alfredo. I don't even know how to say his last name, but Alfredo Escargara and Dwayne Mitri. So he owns the gym at F1. But I help him out, like we're in the gym. I just train Eli, but when I'm there, I try to help the guys out as much as I can. They have a good team. So,
yeah, that's what's up, man. George is as nice of a guy as in the sport, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to have you on too, because you're real knowledgeable and everything. And we can kick it off into the big topic of this past weekend with Devin Haney. I think all three of us can agree that was one of the most impressive performances we've seen from Devin Haney. I'll give it to you first, George. What was your initial thoughts after watching that one?
Yeah, definitely. I was just like, before we got on it, I was watching I was watching all the highlights, watching Instagram and stuff, the reels. He's like, I think he just got better, man, moving up to 140. I think he's good, man. I think him, that weight, fighting at 135, moving to 140, I think it might have just been draining him too much, and his strength is a lot better now. He probably get even better moving to 147, once he gets settled in at 140. But, he has a great jab, and they were like, I know he was, and because he's talked about it, like when he fought Jorge Linares, he kept asking him, how was my power? His power looked good in that fight, his power looked good in that fight. So he looked really good, but he's at 140. He's going to be the man right there. So.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Like after one fight, it's kind of like, all right, man, maybe Devin Haney is that guy at 140, whether it was the 5 pounds or whatever, but he looked sharp, the jabs, he's always had that good jab, but now like there's something on it. And then the right hand, like, man, it's the best he's ever looked to me, I think last week we talked about, he holds a lot. I don't think he clinched once. Like he was just sharp throughout the whole night, man. It was a great performance.
And we and last week we had Joseph Rivas on. You know, he was giving us the fighter's perspective of like the weight cut and all of that. From your side, from training, how important, like how much do you think that helped Devin Haney? Do you think it was just a skill thing, that he was so much more skilled in pro grade, or do you think those 5 pounds made a huge difference during that last week of, you know, weight cutting?
Nah, it makes a big difference, man. I think he's been making 135 for a long time. Like, I think he's 24, so he's been doing it since he was like 18 or 19. And like, I know it's in Elijah, like we got a nutritionist now, and so he's still fighting out. He's been fighting at 160, but just the difference of how we do it, you know, how he makes weight. I can see the difference in his performance. You know, in the later rounds, like the last fight that he had against Resendez, you know, he still had his power in the eighth round when he knocked him out. So I think it made a big difference for Haney. I think he looked good, man. He looked strong. He looked fresh, and I know for sure. Like, I believe it or not, I had to lose weight a couple of times when I was boxing when I was an amateur, but you know, it does make a difference, man. Like, you can be worn out. Just like when we fought on the Garcia versus Davis card, we ran into Ryan Garcia, and he was just sucked down, man. He looked super small. He looked like he looked small. You know, he looked small. He looked drained, and he didn't look healthy at all. So,
as a trainer, at what point do you know, hey, it's time to go, right? Because Haney was at 135. He's undisputed. As a trainer, you know, you got your son who's at 160. At what point, or what do you look for to be like, okay, man, we can't do this anymore?
yeah, once you're like struggling, like to make weight, you know, like Eli's making it easy. I think he's fighting like he weighed in at 158 last time, 159. Like, you know, but you could tell, like, because they're sucking down really hard. Like, the last week, you know, if it's going to be hard or not to make weight. Like, you know, we just knew it. Like, Eli woke up, we checked his weight. We're like, oh, man, it was just such a relief, man, just to know, like, oh, we can make 4 pounds. That ain't nothing. You know, like, some of these guys losing 10 pounds the day before. They're sitting in the sauna or they're sitting in the bathtub and putting Abilene all that crap on. And it's like, that stuff's really bad. You know, it's bad for you, man. Like, I know you got to do it to make weight. Like, it's part of the job, but like, there's other ways, you know. And if you have to do that, that means it's really hard to make weight, you know. So.
Yeah, and it's evident, and I know what you mean with Ryan too, because that's how Devin's always looked. He's always had that like real sunken in face, just looked real hollow, didn't look filled out.
The eyes are all sunken in, his lips are all chapped, like face, the bones right here, it's all sucked in. It's bad, man.
He's looking like a meth head running out in the streets.
For sure. He looked healthy even at the weigh-ins, man. He looked a lot healthier, and it's exciting. Like, I'm not a big fan of like too many fighters, but it's just exciting. I'm a fan of boxing, you know, just to see the fight, like all these potential fights that could happen. You know, I'm like, Devin fought Regis. Like, you know, nobody wanted to fight him, really. You know, like, Devin's trying to fight Tank next. If he can fight Tank at 140, Tank fought, who did he fight? Mario Barrios at 140, right? He fought him at 140. So there shouldn't be a problem fighting Haney at 140 with no restrictions. Let's have him healthy, where he has, you know, he can have as much water after, you know, hydrate, no hydration clause or anything like that, and just get it on, man.
Yeah, I'm with you, and you know, it's kind of, I feel like maybe there's going to be some pressure on Tank, right? Because, you know, Devin's calling for that, and when he did fight Barrios later said that there was a rehydration clause. Like, if Tank wants to be looked at as the guy, you know, I don't think, I mean, being the A side, maybe he could call for those clauses in that, but you know, you got that division so deep that, man, there's going to be a guy that stands out, and you know, I don't think Tank's going to be able to be doing this clause because they're going to call him on it.
Yep. And all these guys like Ryan Garcia, I give Ryan Garcia credit, Devin Haney credit. Like, they're trying to fight people, you know, like Devin, you know, even though Ryan lost, he still went in there fought, man. He had the clause, you know, the hydration clause. He still tried to get the fight, you know. They're trying to fight. They're trying to fight right now. Like, even Terrence Crawford, you know, like all these guys are trying to make fights happen. David Benavidez, even my son Elijah, like, we're trying to get him push him as hard as we can. Obviously, he's still young. He's only 20 years old. So obviously he's learning compared to these guys that are 25, 30. But like we're trying to push him, give him best fights as we can, most competitive fights, so he can learn because you keep fighting guys that are 3-15, 7-7, and you're 15-0. That ain't gonna help. That ain't gonna help you. So and if you got to know at some point, you can't kid yourself. You know what I mean? So like Eli, I think we fought this guy Todd Manuel. He was like 25. What was his record? 25 and like 18, right? But who he fought a lot of good guys, and he lost to some good guys, and he beat some decent guys. I think he had beat Victor Ortiz. Victor was smaller, but still Eli was only like 18, 19 years old, and he only had like 10 fights, fighting a guy with like 50 fights. So we,
Hey, George, I'd ask you, George, being in the sport, what is the reason why these fights don't happen, right? Because like, who do we blame? We always say, like, is it the promoter? Is it the fighter? Because like you said, Eli, your son, he's in there tough already, right? He was just in there with Resendez. He's on these pay-per-view cards. What would you say? Why do fights not happen?
So I know it's easier for the fights to happen if there's if the promoters are working together. So like on the Garcia and Davis card, we could have fought the Golden Boy guys. So who's that Golden Boy? Shane Mosley, right? Just say Shane Mosley is just a name. I'm just throwing it out there, but we could have fought him, right? Because they're with Golden Boy, so they were working together. But now, say on the next card, whatever card's next, say they're not a Golden Boy card. Well, if we wanted to fight Shane Mosley, it'd be a lot harder because he's with Golden Boy, and we're working with Top Rank or something like that, So it is. I guess it is hard. Like we haven't got to that point yet where we had to deal with that kind of stuff. Because all the guys we fought are like with PBC or the managers deal with PBC. So, but yeah, like I couldn't really tell you, to be honest, like because Eli's not to that point yet. But we're fighting the best guy. Like PBC has a ton of fighters. That's what's crazy. They have a ton of fighters. Like they just got a ton of fighters. You can go on the list and look at all the names on there. And like Resendez was very tough. Like Eli was only we were 20 years old. Then we fought Vidal. Vidal was super tough. Kevin Salgado, that dude was super tough, man. Eli fought him. Eli was 19 years old, about to be 20. And but to be honest, like I'm glad that we fought Salgado because it prepared us for Resendez. It was a little bit my fault. Like I was watching Salgado's fights, man. I was falling asleep, and I was watching his fights. I just couldn't. I couldn't focus, man. And I was like, normally I like to be really prepared for a fight, and we were prepared. Don't get me wrong, but like I like to be prepared, like to have a game plan, and so going into that fight, we got to 10 rounds, and also as far as coaching, like I got to learn a few things, so I know for next time, like mentally, we got to be prepared. We got to have a game plan. We can't just go in there go in there and fight. So yeah.
So like in your situation with PBC, and they got a lot of fighters. Do you guys get a list like, hey, choose from this, or are you going to PBC like, hey, we want to fight one of these guys?
So like right now, Eli doesn't really have a say, right? So we have Eli's manager. He'll like say, hey, there's fights. Let's just say there's fights coming up in March. He's like, they'll give me a name. They'll give me a name, and then they'll give me another name, and they'll call me and just check this out. Normally, almost every time, the last 5 times, it's been the first name that they've given me. So you kind of have an idea, like, yeah. So we don't have a choice. Just we could say no, but Elijah's never said no to a name that they've given us. Just because there's no reason to say no. They give us pretty good names. Like we're not, like I said, we're not trying to take like easy fights. We're gonna go there. We know we're gonna win. We're trying to take 50-50 fights, 60-40 fights, or in our mind would be 60-40 or 50-50. Like because I know Elijah's capabilities. I know I know that he can fight. I know he's always prepared and he's mature. Like, he's not like your typical 20-year-old fighter.
Yeah, and the one thing that David Benavidez had said that it's kind of, I feel like, is what Elijah is kind of doing. He said, he wants to fight Charlo, that way Canelo doesn't have another excuse. He's going to take out an opponent so Canelo doesn't have somebody. And in a way, I feel like Elijah is doing that with a lot of the contenders and prospects right now, because he's fighting these tough dudes that are right there, and he's like eliminating them from the picture so that when it's his time to shine, they're not going to have many guys to be like, hey, this is the number one contender, this number two, number three. No, Elijah's going to wipe all those dudes out by that time. And kind of like that, he's going that route. You know what I mean?
Definitely, man. And he get the experience of like having these tough fights. Like a lot of these kids, and it's not the kids' fault or whoever. It's just like they're having these fights and they're giving them, easy fights, man. Let's be honest, they're easy fights. They going in there. Most of these guys come in on a week or two preparation to fight, and they're going in there. And then so when those kids do get a tough fight, they're like, they're in shock. Like, what's going on? They're not used. They haven't been in a tough fight yet, so they don't know. They're not prepared for it.
What would you think the benefit to that is? Because we go over that a lot. How like just some people's careers are so different. I mean, not to throw him under the bus, but we talk about Richard Torres a lot. He was a U.S. Olympian, and he's fighting guys like with losing records. And I'm like, you're 10 fights in. What would be the benefit just getting the record up to look good, or what do you think?
I don't know. Maybe one big fight. I like he's. Let me see. He's not a big heavyweight, right? He's fairly small for.
Yeah.
He's small. We go back to in that world championship of boxing or something. He was knocked out cold. And we kind of go off that, like maybe it's just to get his confidence back. But it's when you see those guys just fight after fighting guys that they're not going to lose to. I just kind of don't really see the benefit too much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they got to put on fights as well, So you figure he had a bunch of amateur fights. He put the work in, and so they'll probably see if they can, if he's going to get any better, because Top Rank's pretty good about that. Like, obviously, they're pretty good also about grooming the guys, and then they get to a certain point, like the fight this weekend, like they get what's his name? I can't even say his name, but. Yeah, Robeisy, like that dude, he's an Olympian too, but they kind of put him in a fight. I think they're kind of like push, that's his second loss. So, you kind of push him out. Like if he lost that, so.
That's my thing too. And it's funny that you say that because I talk about that all the time. Like Top Rank really grooms their fighters until they get to that point. And, when shit gets real, it's kind of like do or die. And they haven't been groomed in that way. It's been, they've been babied a little bit, and I feel like that hurts them, as opposed to on the PBC side, a lot of their guys are in 50-50 matchups, even on the come up.
Definitely, yep. But I think they're moving to like a different direction for boxing. Like, if you can get all these guys to not worry about losses, we can get good fights going. They're kind of like MMA, like UFC. Some of these guys have 10 losses or become world champions. Like, it's really the fans' fault, man, because if a guy loses, he sucked anyways. If he went and fought, he like Crawford and Spence, like people, he sucked anyways. So blah, blah, blah. Like Spence is a good fighter, man. Like he made the fight happen, like and he went at a lower weight, Yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of it's the fans' fault, to be honest. And like if you can if you can have two great guys fighting, and you have a good fight, I think that's we're the winners as fans. Like I don't know. It's hard to explain, but do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like the loss, like they just put too much in a loss, especially if you have two great fighters fighting each other. So.
Yeah, 100%. I think we say on here all the time that all losses are not equal, right? Like when it's two good guys going, like I don't care that they lost,
Yeah.
And Bill Haney, Devin's dad, manager, all that. He had a quote this weekend. And kind of, I felt like alluding to that, right? He said the Mayweather era is over. It's the Devin Haney era. And what I took from that, he said it's not just about one fight, selling a fight. Like we want to fight the best out. And hopefully that's a change for all of boxing, right? Because if two great guys or even two good guys are fighting a 50-50 fight and put on an entertaining fight, I don't care who loses, I hope we're moving more towards that.
I like what Devin Haney's dad said too. He said he's all tank. They're putting him down. They're putting down Devin instead of building him up. Like just saying that he don't bring money to the table. Like he's not an exciting fighter and stuff like that. Like if he's not, build him up. Say how great he is and go in there and whip his ass.
I never understood that. Like, if you're gonna fight a guy, why are you gonna down credit him? You know what I mean? That doesn't make sense. It's like, to me, like, I want to at least make it seem like I'm fighting the best. So why am I gonna say like I'm fighting a bum? You know what I mean? I never understood that part of the trash talk.
Yeah. So even like Elijah's last fight. Well, not to discredit Resendez. Resendez is a very tough guy. He technically never been dropped or knocked out before, but like to get Elijah mentally prepared, I'm telling him, hey, this guy's coming for you, man. Like his career's on the line, and this is gonna be the toughest fight you've ever had. This is gonna be the toughest fight of your life. Which probably the toughest fight was probably Kevin Salgado. Kevin came to fight, man. But so going into that fight, he was like, damn, he was kind of nervous. Like it was a good nervous, like he went in there. He's like, this guy's gonna be tough. My dad keeps telling me he's tough. He's gonna be tough. So I didn't want to psych him out, but I just letting him know, hey, this is gonna be tough. Take it serious. So Elijah went in there, and we took it to Armando, man. Armando, he normally throws average of 50 punches per round, and I did. So I watch the fights all the time, so I kind of know his stats. Like going in, he throws about 50 punches a round. Eli throws 70 punches a round normally. And in that fight, I think one of the rounds, Armando Resendez threw 140 punches. He only landed like 20, but threw 140, and that wasn't by accident. Elijah forced him to throw that many punches. So he was averaging, I believe, 100 punches per round. So he was gassed, man. He was wore out. Eli started going to the body, and he didn't last much longer after that.
See, that's
the comfort zone.
Game plan and strategy that the fans don't think about, and glad we got your insight from this too.
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't just going through the camp, like I didn't think about that before. I thought as the camp was going on, how we were gonna fight him, because he kept asking, what's the plan? I'm like, I'm thinking, give me a second, every day in the gym. But I knew what I wanted to work for. We worked for it. But like I said, watching the videos, and I was like, we're going to beat him at his own game. We're going to make him work. We made him work harder than he's ever worked before, and he stopped him in the 8th round, man. So
it's a solid game plan right there.
Yeah.
Hey, how is coming up with that game plan? Who do you run stuff by? Your father, or how does that?
A lot of time I go through my dad, but I watch the fights over and over and over. I watch the previous fights of the person we're gonna fight, and then I try to figure out how we're gonna fight him. So Elijah, so that fight he was gonna fight totally different, but Elijah hurt him in the 1st round, and then after the fight he goes, man, after I hurt him, everything went out the window. So that's just a young fighter, So I kind of see Elijah like Oscar De La Hoya. I could train, he can fight multiple different styles. We just got to get it out of him, because he can box really well. He likes to sit on the inside and bang, more like a James Toney type style. But like Oscar De La Hoya, for all his old fights, man, he's come out different. He's to box, he's to bang, he's to throw a lot of punches, and that's the type of fighter Elijah is, in my opinion. And that's really fun to work with, to be honest. So,
what is your opinion on guys? You mentioned Oscar De La Hoya, and he's notorious for changing trainers a lot, especially when things go south. What is your opinion on fighters who do that? And do you think it's beneficial to them, or do you think they should, weather the storm and stick with their trainer during those hard times?
Well, I think like with the fighter with Oscar De La Hoya, like it was okay because he's like he could change his style. Like his style was different, but like if you're with the same trainer for a long time and then you go and switch up, like what's he going to teach you in 2 or 3 months? You know, like it's a long time to pick up good habits. You know, and to get rid of your bad habits. So me personally, like if like this is what I told Eli. I was like, Eli was getting better. Me as a coach, I had to get better as well. Like, and I'm not saying I'm a good coach. Like, me, Eli's my son, so it just worked out very well. I know him very well, but and I know, I know I can get out of him and stuff like that. But I forgot what second. But yeah, so
I would just say, don't be too humble, George. Like, hey, like when you take a fighter, from the beginning to where he is right now, like, and that's a lot of credit to you. A lot of credit to Elijah for being able to do it. Obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
But,
I'm sorry. So I think most like the coach, the trainer has to want to get better as well. Like I said, I was studying. I talked to my dad a lot because he's been around for a long time. I watched like other coaches, like the Mustafa. I don't know if you guys seen him. He's on Instagram. Like I message that guy. Like he'll message me back, and I like watching his videos. I watch James Toney videos, Andre Ward. You just got to keep evolving. You got to get better. Like your fighter's going to get better. So the only way he can get better is if you get better. Because if not, he'll leave you behind. And like, you just got to get better. Every day, it's just like the fighter.
I can definitely see, as Elijah continues to grow and stack up them wins, I can see a lot of fighters knocking on your door to, become the trainer. You're gonna have, I can get a feel that you would probably have that same kind of vibe that Robert Garcia had when he started coming up. So, with that being said, is that something you're willing to take on in the future? Is a stable of fighters?
Yeah, we've been talking about it. Like I've been talking to my wife. Like I just gotta, like, if I want to do something like that, I really gotta commit. It's a big commitment, and then it's because I don't just have Elijah. I have two other sons. My middle son, he wrestles and plays football, and I go to all his I try my best to go to all his tournaments and to his matches. And then my youngest son plays basketball, so I got to be there for his basketball games, and like he has practice during the week. So if I'm going to train somebody else, and Elijah's not fighting, I'm taking away time from them to go, train somebody else, which it'd be like a job for me, But yeah, it's just a big commitment, and we've been talking about it, and I have got a couple calls to train a few fighters that are like 12, 13 and 0. They're already up there, which that would be cool, because I don't have to. It'd be for most likely a lot of these guys that want to switch trainers like that just for 1 or 2 fights, So, but I would do it, and we actually been talking about it. So,
yeah, I can see you definitely being successful at that too. It's again, it's the boxing knowledge too that goes a long way, and a lot of people don't take that into consideration. Like I feel like you still have to be a fan. Whatever your position is in a sport, you still have to be a fan at the end of the day and kind of like stay in touch with the product. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because boxing is boxing, but it still evolves, and especially you're 3 generations deep now, right? Your father, you, and Elijah. I would think your team, has seen it all. So
yeah, definitely. So somebody's got to be the champ eventually, right?
Yeah, hey, that's true.
Right, let's talk about it. Who's the best fighter at 160 right now, George? Outside of Elijah, I'm saying, who do you consider the champ at 160?
Who do I consider the champ? So who do we got at 160?
We got John Abek, right?
I like John Abek. A lot of he's older, man. Like that's one fight that I would like, that I would take, for Elijah if we could fight, Lara. The Janabek guy, he's a monster, man. I think we need some fights, more fights before we fight somebody like that, And no discredit to Lara, but he's older. He's older, and like and we talked about this. I said if Elijah loses to him, dude's a gold medalist. He's a couple-time world champion. He's he's gonna be a Hall of Famer. Like, there's no shame if we go in there and have a great fight against a guy like that, and come up short. Or if we win, then if we win, it'd be something great. So.
Yeah, and we were just talking about losses don't matter. I feel like Elijah's style is maybe his biggest attribute, right? Because we want to see that. I want to see that whether he's fighting, the best guy in the world or whether he's fighting the guy from around the corner.
Definitely.
That style is
yeah, he comes to fight. He comes to fight, man. He definitely comes to fight.
With the middleweight division kind of being wide open right now, I mean, Janibek, of course, is kind of the guy there, we could all say. But for the most part, I feel like it is kind of wide open, and there is everybody's kind of scattered around. Are there any other guys along that level? I mean, we mentioned Shane Mosley earlier, and that's a guy that I'm a big fan of because he's gritty in the way he's coming up. He's learning the hard way. But are there any other guys you kind of have your eyes on?
Honestly, we don't have our eyes on anybody, man. We just if they ask us to fight somebody, we'll fight him. Or if I feel like Elijah's not ready to fight that person, then we don't fight him. But and I'm not scared to say that. I mean, hey, he's 20 years old. We'll fight him eventually. What I mean, but he's 20. Maybe once he gets 22, we'll fight anybody. And he's not scared to lose. He ain't scared to lose. If we fight somebody that's good, I like Regis, man. He's I lost, I lost. I just gotta get back in the gym, So, but Elijah will fight anybody. If I tell him to get in the ring with damn Mike Tyson, he'll get in there, But but that's just because he has that much trust in his team, But so at 160, there's a bunch of good guys, man. You see, you have Charlo. Charlo's still good. He didn't, he beat Benavidez. He was a little bit heavy, but he beat Benavidez. And who else?
Just looking at ESPN, they have Adames up there. They have Christian Bank Jr.
Yeah, Adames. Yeah, even Eli said somebody had messaged or they posted Adames fighting Elijah Garcia, and Eli was like, "Hell no, man! You get in there with that guy. He's a monster. Like himself. He's not. Eli would fight him. Don't get me wrong, but the dude's a monster. He's in his prime right now. All these guys are 28 to 32. They're mature. They fought a lot of guys. They've been around. And that's why we're not in a rush either. Because once you're in that position, obviously he's ranked high. But once you're world champion, you kind of don't have a choice. Well, some people do, but you don't have a choice of who you're going to fight. So, we need to get the experience before he's world champion. So he's going to be ready.
Yeah. That's a big ask, right? Hey, he's only 20. You're asking him to fight the top of the division, but on the other side, it's he's so good. ESPN already has him number 8. So, how do you balance that? Is it just? I mean, because he's so good, but he is so young. How do you take on fights, or how do you balance that? Yeah.
You just gotta be honest, man. Honest with yourself and honest with the people. Be like, hey, he's 28. He's not ready, or we don't want to take that fight. Like I said, Eli will fight anybody, but that's what he's got me for. He's got me and the team, and of course the team, our promoter, our matchmakers, Tom Brown, TGB Promotions. They know Eli's an exciting fighter. They're not. They don't want to put him in too soon, who was it? Fernando Vargas, man. He was young. I think he was the youngest person to win the U.S. championships. He was 16 years old, and then he turned pro and he's fighting Trinidad and Oscar and all these guys. He had a short career,
Yeah.
And but he fought all the best guys. So
yeah, I think he would be the poster child. Maybe not ruined too young, but definitely could have went a longer route and gained some experience. He was in there tough and suffered some, brutal knockouts. Or the Trinidad fight was really punishing.
Yeah, that was bad. Oscar De La Hoya put it on him pretty bad too.
Yeah.
Wiki Wright, that was a tough fight. I think he won that one, but
You definitely know it's bad when you get outboxed by Ricardo Mayorga, and at that point of Fernando's career, it was kind of like I think that was his last fight anyway. But yeah, it's bad when Ricardo Mayorga gives you a boxing lesson because that's
and really, I remember that fight, and I don't know how old he was, but you think like, oh, he was already past it, bro. Look, he was probably around 30, right? He was just that game.
Yeah. I mean, like in the end, Elijah, all these guys, man, they put a lot of hard work in from when they're young. Well, Eli didn't start till he was like 13 years old, but like a lot of these guys have been boxing since they're 8 years old, and they want to make some money. They want to make some money, and then after you make some money, it's up to you. Do you want to be a legend? Do you want to be a world champion? Like, what do you want to do? How do you want to be remembered? So
yeah, and it's rough. And I want to make a comparison with the fighter from last week, and we kind of touched on it earlier. But Rafael Espinoza, it's kind of similar to the way Elijah popped up onto the scene. Like Rafael this past weekend with a huge upset.
yeah,
That's like obviously they're confident going into the fight, but take us through that side of it too, because as you prepared for the Vidal fight, that was like I would say the star-making performance for Elijah. Before and after that, what do you think is similar, like with the Espinoza camp, and especially with him coming from Mexico too? A lot of his fights, I think all of them were in Mexico. This might have been one of the first ones he had in the States. Being a relative unknown and that kind of pressure facing a really A-side type fighter, how do you prepare for that in camp?
His team, they probably just they could see it in him, that they probably took a chance, but they probably know like that he could win. Like with us when we fought Vidal, I don't want to say we were supposed to lose that fight, but like the odds weren't very good because nobody knew who Elijah was. He had a big knockout before that, but the guy that he fought wasn't, he wasn't on that level of the guys like Vidal. So we went in there and they were surprised that Elijah won that fight, and I like going into. I watched Vidal's fight. I watched all of his fights. I watched his fights. I watched them over and over and over, and then I told him, yeah, we'll fight this guy. I think we. I know. I said, well, I know we could beat him. I know Elijah. Like he's mentally strong, man. Like, being mentally tough is like it's a big part of our training. Like, to be mentally tough, be mentally ready. Like, once it started in the weigh-ins, Eli said that he saw him look away. He said, man, he broke. He said that Vidal broke. He looked away, and that just gave Eli confidence. That this guy, he's not going to be as mentally strong as him. In the fight. Which, who knows, because Vidal got hit by a truck, man. He got hit by a truck and he was out for 2 years and he came back. So that's a lot to come back from too. But, in the ring, it's just, it's a little different, I guess.
And you got hit by another truck in the ring that night.
Yeah, man. So, and then, go ahead.
I was just saying, when you're weighing those risks, right? Because kind of you're unknown at that point. You have a fight that maybe you're not supposed to win against. Who do you run that by, right? Like, are you running that by Elijah, or is it better that he doesn't know?
Well, I mean, me personally, I knew. Well, I didn't. I thought we were gonna win, So there was no second guessing. But I talked to my wife, and like we do a lot of praying, man. We pray a lot, and we just, like this is what we're gonna do, just bless this decision, and if Eli's, we're gonna prepare him as best we can, and the outcome is what it is, man. Like this only way. That's like I said, it's the only way to get better is you fight these guys. He had the same record, close same record as Elijah. He's just a little bit older. I think my dad was like 27. So, if you don't ever step up to the plate, man, you're never gonna hit the ball. So
right. And you guys hit that one out of the park, and followed by 2 pay-per-view performances right after. Like, yeah man, that was big.
Hell of a
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, definitely. Like, yep, it's a great year, man. Is like it happened quick, you know. It happened real quick. So
Yeah, there's some comments here with some names: Marquise Taylor, Ian Green, Theodore. You guys can do that. I'm not gonna even probably try that one, but I mean, those some random names, obviously in the weight division there. Do you kind of keep an eye on all these guys in case any of those names pop up for a potential opponent?
no, so I think the Marquise Green guy, I think he's been talking. He's been saying he wants to fight Eli, but that's the only name that I know. But not really, man. We just go about our business. Eli trains every day, or right now he's kind of training 3 days out of the week, and going to the gym the other two to lift weights and stuff like that. But um, you know, we honestly we don't. The only time we watch boxing when it's on TV, we don't really like live boxing. We have a ranch here. We got animals in the backyard and stuff like that. So, but when it's time to fight, when they call us, tell us who we're gonna fight, then we prepare for that guy. So we just deal with what we're in control of. So
It seems like you guys just take out what's in front of you and
yeah,
ask questions later, right?
yeah, definitely. Like like Eli's only 20. Like there's no fighters for us to call out. There he goes right there. There's no fighters for us to call out. Like he just goes and fight. He just goes and fights. He fights whoever they put in front of us. I'm like I get it. Like other people, they you got grown ass men calling out Eli. They're like 25, 20, 30 years old. Like he's just fighting, man. He's just fighting whoever they put in front of us, and we're trying to get better. So, I think.
Is there a dream fight that you see? Maybe not even in the weight class. Is there someone like, man, just speak style, whatever? That's the fight that at some point we want
to fight Xander Zayas, maybe. Xander, he's actually a friend of Eli's. I think Eli knows him, but like they came out at the same time. Eli he would fight him. Like he's good, man. Xander's good. He's top ranks. He's their guy coming up. I think Elijah's. He's gonna be coming up to PBC, and that'd be a big fight. In the future. So
that would definitely. That's that Mexican Puerto Rican right there.
Yeah, for sure.
Always up for those. Let's do it. And I do feel like Xander's kind of been on that benefit of the top rank matchmaking, but let's see how it turns out, right? Let's match her up. But yeah, that'd be.
Yeah, he's a good kid, man. Like all those guys are good kids. Like who do we have? There's a bunch of good kids here in Arizona, man. Like local fighters. It's just like I wish everybody can get on. Like everybody can get on. Like you want to see everybody do well. That's why like when people call us out, I get it. They want to show their talents too. They think they could beat Elijah, or they're probably the easiest person. They probably think he's the easiest out of everybody to beat. But that's fine. But
how do you take that though? Because really, you guys, I don't see you guys calling anyone out. And so to get called out, it's like, come on, man.
It's kind of not like flattering, like they're calling us out. They could, because we're in that position to get called out, I guess, So
that's a good position to be in.
Yeah, it's a good position to be in. So eventually we'll fight them, or if we don't fight them, it's because we weren't that good or they weren't that good, So
well, with going back to this past weekend with Robeisy and Espinoza, like those kind of like I feel like fans really get behind guys like Espinoza because again, just come from nowhere type of performance. But with that being said, with Espinoza, where do you guys see his future now at featherweight? Or do you see him trying to go, or do you see Robeisy trying to, flex on a rematch? Or what do you guys think from here with, Espinoza at least?
Who knows, man? He's with what's the name of the promotion that's with him? They'll probably take care of him for a little bit because Navarrete came from the same promoter, right? Zanford.
Yeah.
Right. So and Espinoza, he has a couple losses, doesn't he?
No, he was undefeated.
Oh, he was undefeated. Yeah. Okay. Well, Yeah, he's better. I mean, he beat a good guy, man. Robeisy's pretty dang good. He's an Olympian, but he's lost already. So who knows what Top Rank's gonna do with him? Because they're pretty good at just once you got two losses like that, man.
Yeah,
So,
it's like, do you give the guy with two losses a shot at it, or do you just run with the guy with undefeated record and promote off that?
and I think
I would
Stanford
think
will
that.
probably take care of him as best they can.
Yeah. I would think that fight warrants a rematch, right? Both knocked down, and Espinoza definitely, showed up late. I think, yeah. How much does Top Rank have invested in Robeisy? Do they give him a rematch, or is it like, hey, on to the next?
Yeah, I don't know how much money those guys are making. Like, I can't imagine they have a ton of money invested in them. Like they're paying them like every time they fight. So who knows?
My thing is always like too with Top Rank. Here's like again we talked about how their fighters are kind of babied a little bit. Because of that, when one of their guys takes a loss, it's a bigger impact than when it's a PBC 50-50 type of fight. I don't feel like it's as impactful, and I think that's what hurts some of these Top Rank fighters.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because they're already being babied, So, and then they lose. So now what do we do with them,
So like, even like Jahai Tucker, for example, and he's been on the program before. We're big fans and supporters of him. He took a loss, and I feel like now they're not necessarily going to feed him anymore. They're going to throw him in tough fights, which is what we also saw last weekend. He fought to a draw. In a tough fight, and I feel like that's kind of what their thing is. Like they'll baby you as much as they can, and then when they're not ready to continue with that, they're going to throw you in the 50-50 fights now.
Yeah,
it's crazy because as a fan, I prefer the other model, right? Like Rayo Valenzuela, like, bro, he's young and he two losses already or whatever, but like close fights. I want to see him fight again. Like December 16th, sign me up. He's fighting Colbert again.
Yeah,
and that's where I'm like, yeah, losses don't matter. But when you have guys that are losing fights that as a fan I know that they're supposed to win, I mean, then yeah, I'm looking at that loss a little different.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good thing about PBC, man. Like even we fought Resendez. Resendez had a loss already. Now he's got two losses, but I'm sure there's a ton of people that still want to watch him fight because he put him and Eli were going at it pretty hard for about 3 rounds, and then Eli just picked it up slowly and took over. But I watched Resendez fight. I watched him. Before I even knew who he was. I seen him fight on TV, and I was like, man, that was an exciting fight. So. And I saw Vidal fight. I had seen him fight, and I had mentioned this before, but I told Elijah, hey, but we're gonna end up fighting this guy, I guarantee it. And that was our first big fight. So,
well, we can preview that. I think we kind of covered. I mean, Devin Haney killed it last weekend. Espinoza, huge upset. Looking forward to this weekend, the Showtime card, the PBC card. You've got Chris Colbert and Rayo, the rematch. I'll kick it to you first real quick, Ray. How do you see that rematch? We watched it actually. We were all there in attendance for that one. I don't think you were there for that one, George. That was the March one.
That was
yeah. But yeah, I mean, you and I were there. We watched that one. How do you see the rematch going?
Oh, I mean, shoot. As a fan, I want Rayo to get that, man. I thought Rayo won that first fight. With being in the building, I'd never seen anything like that. When Colbert was announced the winner, and those boos drowned out anything he was possibly trying to say. Loudest boos I've probably heard, especially in person. But I mean, Colbert's a good fighter. Rayo has something to prove, I guess. Definitely doesn't want to take another loss. I think we're gonna get an action-packed fight, and hopefully the best Rayo we've seen. But I'm gonna roll Rayo, no doubt.
Excuse me.
Yeah, it's gonna be exciting. How do you see that rematch going, George?
I think probably Rayo probably knock him out, man. He wants to I don't know if he has anything to prove because we already know what you're gonna get from him. You know what I mean? Like he wants to he wants to go out there and fight, man. He's trying to knock these guys out. So but I do think obviously he's got to get that win. If he loses again, it could be bad for him. But also whatever happened with not to change the subject, but when he fought Santos, like I was at that fight, I thought that maybe they would rematch too because they dropped each other a few times, you know.
Yeah, they dropped each other. I mean, shoot, Rayo did more damage on De Los Santos than Shakur Stevenson did, right? We crowned Shakur the best at 135. But yeah, that's one rematch that I thought we would see too. And I don't know if that happened.
Yeah, but
It hasn't happened, I should say.
But okay, like you said, I'll go with Rayo. I'll go with Rayo. Remember, boxing is going to be going to like the end of the year, man. Which is crazy because I've seen more fights like December 26th or something like that are going to be happening. And then Bam Rodriguez fights this weekend here, I believe.
Yeah, that one's going to be fun. Bam and Sonny. I'll let you kick that one off. George, how do you see that one going with Bam and Sonny Edwards?
I think honestly haven't seen Sonny Edwards too much. But that dude Bam, he's a bad dude, man. That dude he can fight. He can really fight, man. He's exciting, and I wouldn't be surprised if he knocks Edwards out. So.
Yeah, Bam kind of does it all, right? He kind of has almost Lomachenko movement, but then can still crack.
Yeah.
When you talk about the future of boxing and guys under 25, 23, you got Bam up there, you got Eli there, and so even as a fan, I'm just rooting for Bam, man. I think he can make a big statement over a world champion in Sonny Edwards. But yeah, I'm not big on the Euros, Felix.
Yeah.
I'm rocking with San Antonio's Bam Rodriguez for sure.
And the other guy again, going back to the PBC card, one of my favorite fighters, David Morrell, and he's just north of you guys in the middleweight division. He's up at 168.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on him? Because me personally, I'm huge on David Morrell, and people are going to talk crap to me, but I think he's King David. You know what I mean? I think he beats both Benavidez and Canelo. People are going to think I'm crazy, but I'm huge on David Morrell. What is your opinion on him, George?
I wouldn't say you're crazy, but I like David. I think he's had not a lot. He's proven himself already, beating Caleb Plant and like having tough fights, being able to go 12 rounds, hard 12 rounds. Like Morrell, he don't have that many fights. But does he have less than 10 fights or something like that?
Yeah, I think so. He might be at 10 exactly.
Yeah, so you get in the ring with somebody like David Benavidez, like that dude's in shape for days. Like that dude's cardio is crazy, man. That would be a good fight. I mean, just talking about it, it'd be a great fight, man. That's the kind of fights they got to put together. But even David doesn't want no part of him. Not that he doesn't want part of him. He ain't got enough fights. He ain't got enough experience. Nobody knows who he is. And I guess that's kind of what Bill Haney was saying about like talking the fighters down. I guess like just fight. I guess you'd fight him. I guess. So, but I mean, David, he's up there, man. He's paid his dues. He's had a lot of good fights. He deserves that Canelo fight. So.
Yeah,
I hope.
Yeah, that quote by Bill Haney, bro. That's big. That I hope all young fighters coming up and everybody can hear. Right? Like, don't tell me why you're not gonna fight this guy. Like, you're making excuses why you're not gonna fight him. Just fight him, beat him, and let's go on to the next. Right?
Yeah.
I think the Haneys won the weekend this past week, bro. Like. Great performance by David and Bill Haney's talk. Bill Haney's talk was landing, bro. Everything he kind of said, I was like, damn, yo, that's for real. So
yeah.
And those cards, again, both the Top Rank and the Showtime card, those are nothing too big. The Colbert Rayo is probably my fight pick of the weekend. But then again, we also have on the zone, we've got Jake Paul is in action, and our girl Shadeja Green having her first world championship fight. Are you familiar with Shadeja Green?
Maybe I saw a picture. I really don't know too much about the girl. Like I seen Superbad fight the girl Superbad and Clarissa Shields and Serrano. I don't really know too much about the girls, man. To be honest.
Did you see Shields? I guess it was kind of all the news today. The video of her getting.
Yeah, she got dropped pretty good.
She got dropped. She got dropped and was going off on Rolly, right? Like, what did Rolly say? That he feels good for knocking out that guy for putting hands on that woman, and that set her off, man. That was crazy.
And she's defending herself on, like, on every, I see her defending herself. I really didn't watch to see what she said, but I guess she mentioned they pulled up the padding out of the gloves or something.
Yeah, come on.
Imagine if she fought Keith Thurman and like wearing 10-ounce gloves. They would kill her, man.
Yeah,
like Felix told me right away. He sent a message. Those gloves definitely had padding in them. Like, come on.
It was clear. And to me, like, there's no shame in it. You might be probably gonna go down in history as the greatest women's fighter of all time. I think that's probably a given at this point. I don't think there's anything
accomplishment-wise, for sure.
Yeah, I don't think it's up for debate. I think Clarissa Shields is that girl, and historically, it's going to be hard to beat what she's accomplished. But getting dropped by a guy is nothing to be ashamed of. At the end of the day, even if this guy's a low-level club fighter, still, nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah, he's a man.
So I mean, the nervous energy with having to defend herself afterwards, speaks volumes about it. I know clearly she's embarrassed and she's prideful. She's a fighter, but I mean, you don't have to go on and.
Hey, she said she was gonna whoop Rolly's ass when she said she was gonna put hands on him. With that, I mean, it's kind of a weird segue, but how do you guys respond to social media? Like, do you guys even read it? Do you check it? Are there things that set you off where you're like, no, I got to respond to that, or what is it to you guys?
That's nothing, man. Like, honestly, Elijah, he don't even get on his Instagram that much or his Facebook. He'll get on once in a while. We'll help him out because he gets a lot of messages on Facebook and Instagram. He, for the most part, he's on his Instagram. Like, he does his Instagram, but like Facebook is just crazy messages. But he hardly ever gets on, to be honest. And like, people send us text, like people that have our numbers, or because they'll send us screenshots or whatever. This guy's talking crap. What are we gonna do? Like, it's not a big deal. It's boxing. Like, to me, so a lot of people take it personal because they never fought before. Like, or a lot of people don't understand boxing. Like you see baseball players or football players after they're done, like they go have a beer together. It's a loss, or a win. It's a little different with boxing, but like a lot of the guys that I fought with, they were some of my best friends. So Jason Estrada, he went to the Olympics in 2004, and I fought him 9 times. A lot of people don't know Jason, but the people that do know him, like, he's a dick. Like, nobody really liked him, but me and him ended up being really good friends, man. Like I talked to him, he messages me, or I could call him whenever, we fought 9 times. Like, how many people shared the ring 9 times? He beat me 9 times, but I think we had like a tie once. I beat him by a couple points twice, but he was really good, man. He was just faster than me, and he was a really good boxer. So,
and we can actually segue into, because 16 a couple weeks is that big heavyweight card. We've got Joshua on there, we've got Wilder on there. We've got some big names on that card alone. With your
Baby Miller on there, you got
Big Baby Miller. Your experience at heavyweight, again, I've seen the fight with you and Bermin Stavern for the amateurs as well too. I mean, you've got some foot in the game in the heavyweight. What is your opinion on the heavyweight landscape right now and some of these guys out there?
Well, I like Fury. I like Usyk. Man, I was just looking today. I think Deontay Wilder, he's up there in age. He's like 40 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess so heavyweights, they mature when they're up into their 40s, because they're so big. But we were just talking about the new weight class they're trying to come out with as well. But I mean, the heavyweights are like, they hit hard, man. People want to see people get knocked out, so they just got to fight each other as well. That's the other thing, like they just got to put these fights, like I think Andy Ruiz messed himself up, man. He could have had at least a couple of fights. He sat out for a while, but they just got to fight. I mean, it's easy for me to say, but like once you have $20-30 million, just go fight,
Right? Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah, we hope they fight. Actually, this card, what is, I forget the name of it. They have a name for it, but
Oh yeah.
kind of everybody's kind of fighting, right? They're not necessarily the guys we want to see them fight, right? Because we want to see Wilder, Joshua, but at least they're fighting, and that gives us some hope. George, as a pro, was there anyone that did you ever have a dream fight? Like, man, I want to fight this guy for whatever
Hell
reason.
no. Hell no, man. I didn't want to fight. Hey, you know what? Boxing brought me a lot, man. I got to travel the world, being on the U.S. team, and I met a lot of people. But I was small, man. Those heavyweights are huge. Like now, I look back and I'm like, man, I can't believe I was fighting those big old monsters. You know.
Well, hey George,
Like,
I gotta
my
ask, why were you a heavyweight then?
because I like to eat tamales and no, actually I did better. You know, like in the amateurs, I was able to do it because so when I was so I did the 3 3-minute rounds for a little while, but in '04 for the Olympics, it was 4 2-minute rounds. So that really benefited me because I could come out and go as hard as I can for 4 rounds. You know, 4 2-minute rounds, and these big guys they would gas out. You know, honestly, so when you say my dream fight, like. It wasn't like a dream, but I was excited to fight Cuba. I was excited to fight Kazakhstan. I was excited to fight like the guy from Cuba. I fought Michelle Lopez. He beat me by a couple points. He went on to win the Olympics that year. He won gold medal. The guy from Kazakhstan, I think he either got silver or bronze. I fought a guy from Germany. So in 2000, he was a heavyweight. He got a medal in 2004. He won another medal. I fought him like in 2003 or something like that. But uh, I had fun in the amateurs, man. It was good. Like I got to fight a lot of um
Yeah,
Olympic.
as I mentioned, Bermain Stavern is a big
Oh
name right
yeah,
there.
Romain Stavern. Yeah, he was good. Even when he fought Wilder the first time, man, that was a good fight. Like that was a
Yeah,
competitive fight. And then he was off for a very long time, and he gained a lot of weight. So I fought Bermain. I fought him twice in like 1 month, and I beat him. I beat him easy, man. Like but I saw him. So he fought Victor Bisbal, was from Puerto Rico, and it was in Tijuana, the Olympic qualifier, and he came out. Boom, threw a big old hook and drops Victor. Victor's like 6'3", 280 pounds. He dropped him, and Victor barely got up, and they kept going. But I can't remember if he knocked him out or not. But they're like, "Oh, you're fighting that guy tomorrow," and I was like, "Oh my god!" So,
and you took it to him, man. You guys could watch some of you guys that are in the comments, or if you're watching a replay, just look it up. You'll be able to see it on YouTube. It's a good fight, and George took it to him, man. He took it. You can see immediately. There's a big left hand that he landed within the first minute or so, and it took his soul. You could just tell.
Vern's one of the few humans that could say they went 12 with Deontay Wilder, right? Like,
yeah, definitely. Yeah, he was putting the pressure on. He was putting the pressure on Wilder, man. He was putting the pressure on him. He was doing. Yeah, I think like so when I fought him in what was 03 or 04, like he was like 220 pounds. He was fast, he was moving. And then when he fought Wilder, he was the first time it was a little bit heavy. When they fought the second time, it was really heavy. Like I think he was off for like 2.5 years, and he just got in the ring and fought, like super heavy. So not that it matters. Wilder probably would have knocked him out anyways. But
I got a question, right? This is kind of a
yeah.
Oh, you want to read the?
Oh yeah, but I
that
can
question
see.
first.
Yeah.
So Garcia seems like he fights in a futuristic Mexican way. Does George teach Mexican style or nah?
No, I don't even know what Mexican style is, but I mean I have an idea what it is, but no, I like so what well it just depends on the fighter. Like Elijah, so from his weight when he turned pro at 154 to 160, like he's tall. You figure he's tall, and he'd be a boxer, right? Because he's tall, mostly taller. He's like 6 foot tall. But he likes to come forward and bang. So we had to adapt, and we had to kind of I had to figure out, hey, how do I train this guy? Like so he can, so he can fight the best. Like the way he likes to fight. So we kind of had to train that way, and I adapted, and we kind of just worked around it. So yeah, there was no Mexican style. Like he deflects a lot of punches. He catches and rolls a lot of punches. Sometimes it looks like he's getting hit more than he really is, but they go off his shoulder, they go off his arm, they go off his his body, everywhere but his head. So
Do you think there's a lot of pressure, just being a Mexican fighter, to have the quote unquote Mexican style?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so because we fought when we fought Resendez. So like, I have family in Mexico. They they were biased big time on Resendez. And I think it kind of hurts us because Elijah's Mexican American. So he's not like Mexican. So, and he don't speak Spanish either. So like, they kind of hated on us because of that. But like, if yeah.
Yeah,
I got a question. Let's see. I always see like basketball players say like, oh, they grew up, they were playing ball and one-on-one against their dad, and then they finally beat their dad. Does that happen in boxing, George? Like, you're a fighter, you're training Elijah. Have you ever, at what point were you like, yo, I can't get in the ring with this kid anymore? Or can you still get in the ring with him?
I haven't gotten in the ring in a long time. No, I've been in the ring a long time, man. I would have a damn heart attack right now. No, let me see. 07 was my last fight. I never looked back. I had the kids. I was always busy with the kids. Now I whooped his ass though. But I was getting in the ring. I remember. So my dad used to box, but my dad fought at 122. And when I was like, I don't know, 13, 14 years old, I was already 185 pounds, and so and that was like my dad. I respect my dad who whooped my ass too, but like, but my dad, I'm bigger than my dad. Elijah's bigger than me, and I know for sure when he's done boxing, he'll probably be about 350 pounds too. So,
I've sparred with my dad before too, and that's it's interesting because it's like, as a kid growing up, you're afraid. You're not gonna step to your pops like that, but when you're in the boxing ring, it's kind of a different vibe. It's kind of like, that's good.
That's funny.
Angel Munoz, shout out to Angel Munoz. I've been saying Eli fights like James Toney. I mean, that's a sick comparison, and of course middleweight too. And I can see that too. Eli stays in the pocket a lot of that. If you were to compare, if somebody were to just come up to you who's never seen him fight and ask you to compare him with the fighter, who would you say he's most like?
Yeah, I would say James Toney. So like, I watched a lot of video on James Toney, and that's kind of who we kind of mimicked a little bit. Like, we're trying working on the inside, rolling and catching and countering. James Toney was a little bit like a little bit different than Elijah, but obviously not everybody's gonna be the same. But shout out to Angel too, because I'll work his fight. I think he's fighting January 19th in California. I forgot the name of the thing. He's gonna fight in California though. I'm supposed to be going doing his cuts. He's middle. Oh yeah, I think he fights at 154. He just fought like 2 weeks ago. He's a good kid, man. I think he goes by the machete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had Angel on here, man, and we had him on here, and that weekend his fight, and he blew the guy out. So, and he gave a lot of love. Gave a lot of love to the Garcia family camp. So
he came to my house, man. They came to my house, and he did some sparring with Elijah and some of the other guys at the gym. He's a good kid, man.
Yeah. Shout out Angel Munoz for sure. This what was the next card you're working this weekend, right? Tony Edwards. Yeah. I know we talked about it earlier. I don't think you remember, or maybe I forgot. But who are you working with this weekend?
His name, he goes by Torito, I believe. So I don't know his name, but so Romel Caballero. I think it's Randy Caballero's brother. So Romel, like, he was 5-0. He was time Golden Boy, but he lives here in Phoenix. He trains fighters. So I always tell these guys, like, especially like if you're a new trainer, like a lot of these guys have been around for a long time. Like, when you're in the corner, like, you should just be focused on the fighter. Like doing all the cuts and all that stuff. Man, it's so hard. Like, well, for me, it was at first. Now I got the hang of it, but like, the coach should just concentrate on coaching, like, especially if you're, if you don't have a lot of experience, working pro fights or whatever, So get a cut man, let the cut man take care of it for you, and it's a big help, man. All you have to worry about is just giving this guy instruction. You don't have to worry about his cut or his eye or anything like that. So
that's
So,
a good
as a
kind
cut
of.
man, George, as a cut man, have you been in any situations where your adrenaline gets going because you don't know if you're going to be able to help the fighter?
nah, man. So like the first 3 fights that I worked that I had cuts. Like I was prepared though. I was super prepared. Like I had got cut in a couple of my fights, and it ain't no big thing. Like I just like what I always tell these guys. Hey, man, I know what I'm doing. If you get cut, don't worry about it. I got you. This way, they don't have to worry about it. So I've had a few cuts, and I didn't have to worry about it. Like I'd watch fights on TV, and there's a couple of fights that I watched, and I just replay it, and the guy would get cut. Boom! I'd get my stuff and get ready. I already know what I'm gonna do. That's how I prepared, man. Like uh, I, I'm not like an organized guy or anything like that, but I was super prepared for the fights. Like I have all my stuff ready. It's all in bags. Like I'm just prepared. Like if something happens. So like I said, I'm still getting experience. I've been doing it for like 5 years now, 5, 6 years, and so I haven't been doing it for 30 or 40 years, but uh, I'll get there. I really enjoy doing it. I like wrapping hands, and I believe I do a really good job. I've been told to do a good job, so I enjoy doing it.
It's a lot of pressure too. I mean, you just have a minute, and really, you don't have a full 60 seconds with your
No.
fighter there. I mean, what's been the most probably stressful situation you've ever been in as a cutman in the ring?
So my friend Devin Vargas, he fought King Prince Charles. He fought on the undercard of the Andrew Ruiz card. Remember when Rio lost to Santos? So he was the very first fight. And Devin Vargas, he was a 2004 heavyweight Olympian. He's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
He's a real good friend of mine. So I went and worked his corner. He got cut, man. He had 3 cuts, like 2 big ones right here, one in the middle, and that. And he's a friend. He got elbowed. I saw the elbow, but he came back and he had these cuts, and I did a good job stopping him. But I'm like, man, like I was just doing cuts. His coach, I felt bad, just because I seen the cuts, and I didn't know what to do. I knew to do my job, but I guess it's different when you're fighting, man. He had a good old time. He was all laughing after the fight, and saying they can't stop us. He got elbowed. He got elbowed pretty good, but he's 43 years old fighting a 20 whatever year old guy. So but he had a great time, man. So
It's I would assume. I mean, because you got to kind of think. Do you, depending on what you're faced up with the fighter, is there swelling that you got to go to? Do you got to tend to his nose? Is there cuts? Like there's a lot of things that you got to think about. Or if there's really not much there, what do you do in that situation? There's a lot of things that a lot of people probably don't consider that you guys have to deal with as cutmen.
well, imagine having 3 cuts, and his eyes shedding. So you have 3 cuts on the forehead and eyes shedding. Like, what do you do? Like you go for the biggest cuts, and then you try and get that swelling down as much as possible. But I was watching Stitch Duran the other day, and he was talking about how because he's been doing it for a long time. Like he knows, like he sees a certain type of cut. He knows like the tissue underneath what's going on. You don't just push. A lot of people just go and they push it to the side. Like you're gonna damage your skin even worse. So he knows all the. He knows what's underneath. He knows the tissue. What happens to the tissue when it gets cut and stuff like that. And that's what I've been doing myself. I've been trying to study up as much as possible. Like what's the best way to treat the tissue, because everybody says you get a bump, you just push it to the side, right? Well, you now you're destroying all the rest of this meat over here as well, so it's get even more swollen and bloody. So
Yeah, I mean it's a science to it. Felix, just to answer some of the comments, Gigi, I believe that's kind of been answered. He says, as a coach, are you also part of Elijah's management and picking opponents? We kind of talked about that earlier, where you guys haven't said no. The fights are kind of brought to you. Anything else you have to say to that, George?
no, so he has a manager. Anthony McDonald is the manager. He actually helped me out when I was boxing, like towards the end. He's a good friend of ours. But But no, we don't have a decision. Like we can't go pick. I guess. Well, I haven't asked, but they usually come to us with guys. Is like they want to put on good quality fights, So they want to make sure you have professional matchmakers, that are gonna make sure the fights are entertaining, So that's why we don't have Shakur Stevenson type stuff, But now, I honestly that's one of the guys that I like too. I like Shakur Stevenson, but all jokes aside, but
Well, I mean, with Shakur, we were super high on him, but we always, I think last episode we say like you're only as good as your last fight. Like,
yeah,
man, that just really, at least as a fan, man, like he could have been going through whatever. He said he was sick, but it just looked bad, and it really kind of brought his stock down to me as a fan.
It is hard to do what he did though, like against a really good offensive fighter, like Dos Santos. Like it's hard to do what he did. Like he held him to like a low amount of punches, which is boring. I guess you could say it's boring, but it's
we could say Dos Santos held Shakur to a really low output too.
Yeah. Yep. You can. I guess it's the way you look at it. So, but I mean, you could say it's really good boxing by Shakur Stevenson, or you can say it's boring. Like it's hard to box and move, and do what he did. Well, both guys, but yeah. So, but everybody wants to see exciting. That's what sells, man. Like I always tell Elijah, like you can be the best fighter in the world, but if nobody wants to come see you or ever sees you, it doesn't matter, So.
It's crazy how in just 2 months' time, my opinion on Shakur Stevenson, not that it's changed any, but I mean his stock did drop, and based off of Devin Haney's last performance, his stock really went up.
Yeah,
it's crazy how they've swapped. If those two fight, how do you see that one playing out?
I don't know. If I had to pick one, I would say Shakur would win. I mean, Haney looked good though, man. This last fight, but I don't know. I think maybe because Stevenson could do well like that. Like after a while, people wanted to see Mayweather lose because of the way he was fighting. So if he fights everybody like that, then people are going to be like, oh man, now I want to see him lose. I want to see him lose. He can build something off of that, because. I'm pretty sure most of it was because of him that they fought like that. He didn't allow Santos to do. He didn't just stay in there and let Santos tee off on him. I don't know.
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah. If he wants to win every fight like that, like he probably can, right? Yeah. And maybe not going to be happy, but he's probably talented and skilled enough to do that. What Felix, I was going to tell you what's crazy is like when was it? I don't know, 2 years ago, they talked about the 4 kings at 135. And then we thought we weren't going to get that. And now 2 of those guys have gone up and got belts at 140, and Teofimo and Haney. So I really just hope Tank fights those guys, man. I know Tank could be the moneymaker and continue to fight guys like a Pitbull Cruz or that. I want to see him fight. I want to see him fight Teofimo. I want to see him fight Devin Haney. And as a fan, I just hope those fights happen.
Yeah. That's all we want as fans. And, I'll just kick you really quickly to the same question, because before last week, your opinion on Shakur was really high and Haney wasn't as high. So for you, Ray, how do you see that fight with Shakur and Haney?
Shoot, at 140 now, if we're talking about Devin Haney has some pop, right? Like that's kind of always been the thing on Devin Haney. He can't punch. He can't hurt anybody. Granted, like I don't know where Regis was, right? Regis had got dropped his previous fight, but shoot, let's just take it for what it is. Like nobody wanted to fight Regis, right? Jose Ramirez, I think, had that fight, didn't want that fight. And for Devin Haney to go up to 140, and he took it to pro Regis from the start, right? Dropped them in 3. Shoot, I'm a prisoner of the moment. What I seen last, I think Devin Haney beat Shakur, right? Like from their last fights. But I mean, boxing always changes, man. Like I'm not. No one's gonna know until those 2 guys get in the ring, and that's what we hope for.
Well, the the last big topic we have, again, we'll just talk about Jake Paul. And I'll definitely want to get your take on that, George. A lot of people, I see a lot of fans who they have nothing but negative things to say about Jake Paul, and his fights and whatnot. I'm locked in. I see him putting in the work. I think a lot of people are putting a lot of pressure on him. I mean, he has no boxing experience, so why do we want to see him fight a top-ranked fighter this early? You know what I mean? But from your side, obviously you're an insider in the game. What is your opinion on Jake Paul, and what do you think his goal is in the sport?
I don't know what his goal is, but I know he's helped out a lot of boxers. As far as like financially, like helping them get paid. They get making a lot more money when their fights. He donates a lot of money to different foundations and stuff like that people don't know about. I think he trains really hard. I know BJ Flores is an old friend of mine. He helped train him. He was the ex heavyweight. And BJ said he's a dog, man. He trains hard. Like, how many fights does he have? 8 or something like that. And he's fighting against. He was on the Disney Channel, man. He's fighting against ex-fighters, like people that fought. They have 40 fights. Like the Diaz, even if Diaz is, whatever, he's past his prime or whatever, he still dude has like 30 fights. Like he boxed, like he's in the gym boxing every day, even though he's an MMA fighter. Like, and he's going. He made Diaz money. Diaz hadn't made that much money his whole career. I think he made $10 million with Jake Paul. Dude's set now. Who like all these guys that he's fighting, he made them all money, and the undercard, Amanda Serrano, like she wasn't making any money until I guess he signed her.
We talked about Shadeja Green, Felix, that's one girl we think that's really high on, and she's getting an opportunity on his undercard this weekend.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's unfair for like a lot of people that have been boxing for a long time and they see this guy come in, but he's also helping out a lot of people as well. So if you look at it from that aspect, I think it's pretty good. Like, I get it. Like, some of these guys have been fighting since they were 10. They put in work, whatever. You don't know, you don't have the connections and stuff like that, or maybe you're just not that good of a fighter. Like, if you're good, it's gonna show eventually. Or maybe just for whatever reason you don't make it, but I would think with Jake Paul, he did good for boxing, man. So
yeah, I'm with that too. I'm of that thing. I'm a fan of Jake Paul, man. I think he is doing a lot of positive things for the sport for sure. I don't know if he'll ever become a world champion, but for the same reason you just listed, I think he's good for the sport.
Yeah, and then he has 2 losses already, I think, right? 1 or 2 losses. He's still fighting. Like, he didn't quit. Like, yeah, So
yeah, I think he has the loss to Tommy Fury, and then I like that he could have a fight like on Sunday night, or this weekend he's fighting on Friday night, and it's gonna be a big event, right? Like,
yeah,
I don't feel like
and you know what?
I'm not saying he's the future world champion and all this, but it's bringing eyes to boxing, and it's also giving us another card to watch. And some fans, we just want to watch. It's giving opportunities to women fighters and other fighters on the undercard. I'm not mad at it.
Yeah. Hey, you know what I was thinking too, man? I was sitting down, I was eating turkey, watching football, and I was like, man, I wish there was boxing on today for Thanksgiving. They need to do that. That's some good fights on Thanksgiving, because most people don't work on Friday after Thanksgiving anyways. So I think that would have been great, man, having fights on Thanksgiving. I would have watched them for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, that'd be a big sacrifice for a lot of fighters to want to give up that holiday.
You got to do 2 months anyways. Like, if you're like, that's why Eli wanted to wait till fight after the New Year, because this is the first time in 5 years you got to have Thanksgiving and Christmas. Like, no matter what, you're still gonna miss out. Like, if you're training, you could have a little bit of turkey or whatever, but
all these fights that we watched this past week are coming up. Like, they had to sacrifice, so.
And then they get that day they get to eat. If they fought on Thanksgiving that evening or whatever, they get to eat. So, but it would be cool. Like, some good boxing.
That'd be a great opportunity, and I feel like that is kind of, and it came up this way, but that is kind of what Jake Paul offers. I feel like he's a great marketer. Coming from outside of boxing, right? It's not only I fight on big fights, Cinco de Mayo and Mexican Independence. Like he's kind of been able to create events whenever he wants, really. And
Yeah.
Hopefully that continues. And shoot, Thanksgiving, that'd be where it's at. Everybody's at home watching. Like,
yeah.
Well, this is how I think, man. There's so many boxers right now. Like, why do we have to wait every 6 months to watch Canelo fight? There's like, there's a ton of good fighters. Like, you can have you could have fights like once a month, like big fighters. Like, you could have Tank Davis, you could have Ryan Garcia, you could have all these guys. Like, you could have fighting, yeah, every month, man. Like, you shouldn't have to wait. Canelo fights twice a year, and those are like the biggest fights of the year. Like, you know. You could have they used to have fights on Tuesday. They used to have Tuesday night fights. They used to have Thursday night fights, Friday night fights. Like people go to football games on a Thursday or a Monday. They go to boxing too if it was a good match.
Yeah, I think it's just they got to market it right.
Yeah.
I'll ask you, George, have you guys been affected or any information on the new move to Amazon Prime?
We have not. Well, so we're gonna fight. We'll be fighting either the first or second card. I don't know what card it is, but I was told to be ready because we're gonna be on one of those cards. And I suggested, I was like, if you guys want people to see exciting fights, put Eli on, because I said, hey, Eli can fight boring too, you know what I mean? But I was like, if we get paid good, man, he'll put on the show, like he'll go out there and he'll fight his butt off. He'll go out there and, well, you got to have a good dance partner like we did our last fight, but he'll go out there and he'll fight, man. So
yeah. And I hope they're taking notes, right? Because like if there's a fight you want to see, or I should say, if you want to sell boxing to the public, put Elijah Garcia on TV.
Yeah,
and that's what we want to see. So this move to Amazon Prime, I think everybody's kind of wondering what's it gonna look like, how's it gonna happen. But I mean, yeah.
So I don't know
too much.
Yeah, we'll put either the first or the second card. I don't know exactly how it's gonna work because they just have to be ready. That's all we know and that's all we do. But once it gets kicks off, I guess we'll all know. So
I'm curious to see how their production is, if they keep the same crew, commentators. I would assume they'd want it to just be seamless and look the same way it did on Showtime. But we'll see how that part goes. I'm interested in that.
Yeah,
and all that matters, man. Like Felix, we've talked about like growing up. You see the HBO boxing, right? Like it just seems like a big event. I hope Amazon, whoever's in charge of the production, I hope they, give boxing, its true worth and make it look great. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're pretty much at time now. So any other last comments that I'll from the fans? But George, any other things that you want to kind of throw out there before we wrap it up?
No, man, just thanks for having me on, and I appreciate you guys. And I don't know, you had the video, but Felix, he came to one of Eli's fights, and we have had a pretty good time, man, in Vegas. And cool. I appreciate you guys having me on. I like talking boxing, man. Like after I quit boxing, after I quit boxing like in 2007, I was away for about 8 to 10 years, and then my kids started training and boxing. So I've been back, and I'm a big fan of boxing. And I hope we could do some good stuff. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, that was good times, and I mean, you introduced me to lamb, and that's like one of my favorite dishes now ever, bro. That was like mind-blowingly. If you guys have never had lamb before, it's better than steak. It is a step above steak. It's amazing. And George, thanks to you, I got that.
It's good stuff, man. We have in our backyard, like I said, we raise our own lamb, and I feed it to people, and they're like, man, that, like just like you said, they said it's great. So
yeah, it's like it's like if steak already came seasoned and flavored and everything. That's what lamb is to me. It's so good. It's good quality meat, man. I'm telling you, it was good. But yeah, that was a good time, man. And hopefully, when the next fight comes around, we'll do it again, because that was definitely good stuff.
Definitely, man. Thank you guys.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, that's a wrap for the show.
That's all I got. Like I said earlier, hey George, don't be too humble. You've done your thing, and you have one of the best prospects in the sport at 20 years old. And that's you and him. That's a family thing. So shout out to the Garcia family. Appreciate you coming on. And hey, if you ever want to just talk boxing or have something to say, hit Felix up. We'll get you on anytime.
Definitely. Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, y'all. That's it for this week, and then stay tuned next week. We'll be back again, and we'll probably be doing the year-end awards. And I'll throw out a little spoiler since George is right here. The shoe-in for Prospect of the Year is without a doubt Elijah Garcia, and you'll probably be seeing that ITR Prospect of the Year is going to be Elijah Garcia. Might as well throw it out there now since we have his father right here with us. So hey, congratulations on the award, George.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, y'all. Tune in next week and then tune in Friday for Catch and Counter. But peace.